more than 100 properties in the past 17 years. His company currently manages over 3,000 apartment units, office spaces, and single-family homes. Stewart's specialties include acquisitions of off-market properties, operations management, and asset management. Today, our topic is real estate acquisitions and property management. Stewart, we're excited to have you here. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, okay, great. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. My name is Steward Beal, and I currently run two businesses that work together. The first one is called Beal Capital, bealcapital.com, and we raise funds from real estate investors to buy mid-size apartment buildings and mid-size office buildings. We have two funds we're offering right now. And then the second business is Beal Properties. It's a property company. The company manages properties I own myself personally, the properties we buy with our real estate syndications. And then if you buy a property anywhere in the state of Michigan, we'll manage it for you for a fee. And we manage about 3,000 apartments, single family homes, and office spaces in 63, 64, 65, something like that, cities around Metro Detroit, and then also out to Grand Rapids, where we just opened an office. So that's what we do.
That's awesome. Stewart, you've got a massive portfolio. You've got a ton of experience. You've been purchasing for a very long time. For the newcomers wanting to get into real estate, can you tell us about your first deal and how that kind of propelled you forward to where you're at now?
Yeah, okay, great. So the first deal I ever did was a commercial loan deal. It was a 5-unit. But I recommend people buy a 1, 2, 3, or 4 unit to get started, because then you can get started with a residential loan and can get some better terms than you can, often is the case, than a commercial loan. But that's just not how I started, because I met a guy who owned 12 rental properties around Eastern Michigan University. I was in school at the time, and it just so happened that the only vacant unit was in a 5-unit. Like, he had a 4-unit and I wanted to buy it, but I also needed a place to live, and I did what's called a house hack. In this case, it's a bigger house hack because it's an apartment building. But basically, I bought a 5-unit on Eastern Michigan University campus. I lived in 1 unit while it needed to be fixed up, and I rented the other 4 to the people that were currently living there when I bought the building. And it was a $262,000 purchase price, requiring a down payment in cash of $50,000, and I borrowed $212,000. And I like to talk about interest rates a lot. And the interest rate on that deal, this was 19 years ago, was 5.25% on my very first deal. And that property, was worth $262 the day I bought it, maybe a few $1,000s more. I definitely did not get a steal, an excellent deal on my first deal. It was basically a way to get in and a way to get started. And I talked to a lot of new people. They're like, I don't feel I'm getting a very good deal. I'm like, well, you got to do your first deal. So, analyze a couple and then pick one that's best and do it. It might not feel like the best deal ever, but that's the beauty of real estate. 19 years later, it's been a great deal over time. But basically, that property was worth $262 in 2002. Probably in 2009, in the foreclosure crisis, it was probably worth $100. So it went way down in value. And then, I don't like to sell, and I certainly don't sell on the crisis. So stuck with it, probably worth about $400, $450 today, something like that.
Plus, you got the cash flow through the years, and it's provided returns year over year over year.
Yeah, so it's done exactly what real estate's designed to do, and gives you not just one benefit, it gives you multi-benefits. And your listeners probably know them, but let's repeat them just in case. We've got the cash flow, we've got the appreciation, the property going up in value. We've got the depreciation, shields your cash flow from taxes. And then, of course, the tenants for 19 years have paid down my loan for me, which increases the spread between what you owe your bank and what the property's worth. So those are
When you were qualifying for that loan, were you able to use the existing tenant's income to help get approved for the loan?
Yeah, so it was very difficult to get approved for the loan. And when you're starting out in real estate, that's why I recommend doing a 1, 2, 3, or 4 unit because you can get a residential loan, which is much easier. I did a commercial loan, and I consider myself mostly self-made, but I will say that it's also good to have your mom be a lawyer and your dad be a construction contractor.
Yeah.
And grow up in an entrepreneurial family, you know. So I'm very privileged in my background in terms of having a lot of
Key players around you?
yeah, having good mentors and having good people behind me. And so I'm not saying that you can't, like, let's say you come from a different background. You can't, it's not that you can't do what I did. You know, I got some benefits in the beginning by my mom was a lawyer. You know, she was my lawyer for 17 years before she retired. So I credit much success to them. So yeah, the commercial loan was difficult to get, but I was able to get it through hard work. I had income. I was working at the time. The tenants had income, and my dad and mom introducing me to a couple loan officers, and that helped a lot.
That's perfect. So we've heard about your first deal. Tell us about your largest deal.
Yeah. So the largest deal, is a syndication where we raised $50 million from investors.
Oh, wow.
And we bought about 50 apartment complexes with that money of various sizes. And there were about 980 investors in this real estate syndication. And when you raise $50 million, it doesn't make sense to buy apartment buildings that are $1 million or $2 million or $3 million anymore. You want to be going after some bigger properties so that you can deploy capital more quickly. And so the fund bought many apartment complexes of more than 100 units, bought some more than 150 units, some about 250. But the largest deal I ever did was a 468 unit apartment complex. And my partners and I got very lucky because when you're trying to deploy capital like that, you're looking over a very wide geographical area, probably multiple states, many different cities. But we got lucky in that property became for sale about 4 miles from my house and where my office is in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And the property was extremely distressed. There had been multiple murders and fires in the property, but it was still an attractive position because of its size. And so the property went on the market. It was a fully nationally marketed deal, and there were about 15 bidders. We came in 3rd place, and we were very disappointed, but we told them, look, if it doesn't work out, come back. We're still very interested. And what happened was there was another murder on the property, and the buyer lost their financing. And then they went in contract with the second bidder when there was a fire that took down more units that was already taken down by the fire that had already happened. So now I think there were about 60 units down due to a fire in this 400. So that person lost their financing. And so now we were given a shot to buy this property 4 miles from my house, 468 units. And what I did is I wrote a 40-page PowerPoint presentation, basically a blueprint as to how we were going to take on this property. And I used it to convince myself first, then convince my partners, then convince our investors, and then finally convince our lenders that we were going to be able to take this project on. And we focused on security. we met with the Washtenaw County Sheriff, the police department, the EMU police. We designed a $100,000 camera system, fences, gates, cameras, and we were able to convince everyone involved. And we bought the property at about 80% occupancy with a bridge loan for about $18 million. And then 2 years later, we sold it when that bridge loan was expiring and COVID was coming in April 2020 for well over $30 million. And so that was the best deal and the biggest deal that I ever did. We owned it for about 2 years, and we sold it to a very, very high success. And it was a project with a lot of moving parts and pieces, but the nice thing about buying large properties is you can attract and afford very qualified staff. If you buy a Class C distressed property in a distressed area and you say, hey, property managers, quit your job that you love and come work for me over here at this distressed property, you're going to have a harder time doing that than if you buy a really large, robust property that a property manager can sink their teeth into and build their career with. And so I want to get back to doing that. I want to get back to buying properties of that size. But COVID happened and we took a step back, but we're rebuilding it now.
It sounds like you took a huge step forward though, because you took a property that you essentially were in third place. You worked the plan backwards and you created a vision in your mind of how that needed to go, and you executed. The business plan was probably on point, and then you also came out a huge winner on that deal. So that's incredible. Yeah.
The way I think of building is its own company, and the property manager is the chief executive officer of the property. And what I want to see is a business plan for this business that we're going to own. And so of large properties of size that have a lot of moving parts and pieces, I write it down just like you would a business plan when you're starting a company. You can Google business plans. You can read 1 million of them online. I happen to go to business school, so I had some experience writing business plans, and I write it exactly like it's going to be a business with, who are your customers going to be? What's your revenues going to be? What are your expenses going to be? How do you get there and flush that all out? And I've done that quite a few times on properties of a large size. You can't just go into a large deal and say, okay, I'm going to rent these apartments for more than the last person did. Well, how and who? How are you going to do that, and who are you going to rent them to? Why is someone going to pay more for your apartment than they can across the street? Well, okay, you might have some ideas in your mind, but let's get them down on paper.
Yeah, and you're cascading the message all the way down to staff and telling them exactly what your expectations are to execute. That's huge.
Yeah, we pulled that business plan out 100 times in 2 years to say, no, this is not part of our plan. Let's refresh. Look at this again. We're not executing here. We need to execute here. Yeah, we did that a lot.
Love it. I love it. So you're that one was on market, the largest deal, and you also have a ton of experience with off-market properties. Can you tell us your secret sauce, the gold nugget of how you acquire off-market properties?
Yeah, so the on-market properties, it's hard to get a good price, right? Because everyone's looking at it. And properties that stick on the market a long time, they've got some problems with them. There's a 48 unit in Ypsilanti, Michigan for sale right now. And I offered $1 million less than they wanted about 3 months ago. And one of my clients, my property management clients, was like, hey, I'm underwriting this property today. I'm like, what? 3 months later, that thing's still on the market? It's like, man, there's got to be a lot of problems with that.
Underlying conditions, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So what we like to do is we like to find off-market deals and develop relationships with the sellers, so they view selling to us is more beneficial to them than taking it to the market. And we've got various strategies. The first one is old-fashioned letter writing. In my career, I've written tens of thousands of letters to sellers, and I've done it 3 different ways. Number 1, put letters in mailboxes. Number 2, drive around and write down the addresses that you're interested in, and then go look them up in the city database, and then you can mail the letter to the owner. And then number 3, you can use CoStar, LoopNet. You can pay for leads, pay for access to information. And so it just kind of depends on where you're at in your career. I mean, CoStar, I think the minimum's like, for a small team to use CoStar, the minimum is probably $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Well, if you're on a smaller scale, you probably should be driving around, writing down addresses and looking them up in the database for free, So that's the first way. And then the second way is social media. So we produce social media content that results in more than one person a day asking us to buy their real estate. Now, of course, a lot of it's not good. You got to flush through that of course, but that's a major source of incoming leads. And then the third thing is old-fashioned business networking. So I've been doing this for 19 years. I've joined lots of different organizations and gone to their networking events, go to the real estate meetups, and just make it known to thousands of people in the area in which you want to buy real estate that you're a real estate buyer, and those people will come back to you. Come back to you. And I live in Ypsilanti, Michigan. It's a small town. It's always weird when someone lists a property for sale. I'm like, what? Why did you do that? I would have bought it. You could have just come to me, and so I want to make it so that before someone calls a broker, they give me a call and say, hey, I'm thinking of listing this property for sale. Are you interested? Nice. And then the fourth thing is network with people who help people buy and sell real estate. So obviously that's the realtors, that's the brokers, but take it a step further. Network with insurance professionals, property managers, lenders, title work, lawyers. A lot of people, when they want to sell real estate, they call their lawyer first. They call their insurance company first. They call their lender first, and network with all of those folks. And then another key thing is work really closely with brokers, so that you brokers in your target area know that you're a professional buyer and are not going to screw them around, and they're going to get their commission in a professional and orderly fashion. And so there's a couple of brokers. I purchased about 100 apartment complexes in the city of Ohio in the last 8 years. And there were a couple of apartment brokers who would bring us the deal first. They would get the listing contract signed, and then the very same day, they would bring it to us. And so we would get a first shot at it.
That's huge. And for the listeners, that's called a pocket listing. And that's through relationships. That's 100% relationship based. And the only way to achieve that pocket listing is to get out there like Stewart does and get in front of these people and build rapport.
That's the going fishing with these guys, golfing, lunches, that part of it. And then also just making sure that you get the deal done when they bring it to you, and you don't screw around with it too much. Because they don't want a guy who's going to screw around. They don't want a guy who is going to try to retrade the price 3 times. They don't want a guy who's going to be too hard on inspection to make the seller say, where'd this guy come from? Like they want to make sure that you've got good loan relations, so you don't have to delay, or you don't have to back out, So that's being a professional buyer.
That's huge.
And being known as a professional buyer with these brokers. And then one strategy that's not available to everyone, but I would can ask you to consider it, is service real estate owners in a business that you run, and they will ask you to buy their real estate before they ask anyone else. So, for instance, I'm a property manager and I manage properties for people. Well, dozens of times I bought properties that I started out managing. But let's say you don't want to be a property manager. Let's say you're going to be a realtor or a construction contractor. You can do the same thing. Do a bunch of construction for a guy, on all of his properties, and he'll tell you for sure, hey, thanks for doing that project over here, but this is the last time you'll be over here because I'm probably going to sell this building. And then boom, be like, oh, really? Wow. Okay, let's talk about it. And that's happened sometimes too, both on a renovation perspective. So those are the off-market strategies that we use.
And I think that you have a leg up too, because you have a fund. There's syndications and there's funds. Can you tell us the difference between the two?
Well, they can be the same and they can be different. So today, okay, so let's start at the beginning for people that are just thinking about this for the first time. People read about real estate syndications and they ask me, I want to be a real estate syndicator. How do I get started? And I tell them, whoa, you're putting the cart way before the horse here. Before you start a real estate syndication, before you start a fund, what you should do is start an LLC, buy a property with that LLC, and invite 2 or 3 other people into that LLC as a little investor group first to see a couple different things. Number one, do you like working with investors? Some people do, some people don't. I mean, do you like people asking you hard questions? If you don't, you're not going to be up for being a real estate syndicator. You're not going to be up for sponsoring real estate investments. So what I advise people to do is start much smaller than a fund or a real estate syndication and sponsor a couple different LLCs. And it's really simple. Let's go back to my first deal. It was 15 North Hamilton. It required 50,000 cash and it was a 5-unit. So I could form 15 Hamilton LLC, create a little operating agreement, and ask 3 friends to each chip in 15 grand towards the 50. That'll be 60. Nice to overfund the deal by 10. You can always give it back later if you don't need it. But renovations and stuff like that. And so each person will own 25% of the deal. And maybe you charge your friends and family, an asset management fee or property management fee or a broker fee. So you get paid a little bit for putting the deal together. But that's the first way you should start out working with real estate investors. And then if that's successful and you like it, you can create funds and syndications, which can be the same thing or they can be different. But basically, in my mind, they're pretty much the same. You sponsor a fund, you invite investors into the fund. And then what is the fund? It can be a fund for a single acquisition. It can be a fund for multiple properties. It can be a blind pool where the investors don't know what they're investing in. They just trust you to invest in things. And so there's lots of different ways to structure it from there.
And I said earlier that you had a leg up because you have a fund, and the reason I said that is because a lot of brokers will favor a fund over a syndication because you don't have to chase equity after putting the project under contract. You've got equity available, so they know that you have you're the least path of resistance to get to the finish line, and that makes it very favorable.
Yeah, so I've sold a lot of properties in my career. I didn't set out to do that, but we sold them for various reasons. And it is mind-boggling how many people offer to buy your property when they don't have any money. It's wild. So many times people would offer to buy our properties, and when it came down to it, they actually had no money. So if you are known to someone who has the money, either yourself personally or a fund, and the brokers know this, you have a leg way up.
Yeah.
You clear through the noise a lot.
So after you've taken the property under contract, you've acquired it, the biggest piece there is executing on a business plan and succeeding in property management. Can you tell us how to succeed in property management, one of the most important parts?
Well, I have a lot of successes and failures in property management. Property management is the hardest aspect of the business for many different reasons. But the key to property management is a property manager who is aligned with the owner as much as possible. It's difficult to get the parties aligned because the tenant has different wishes than the property manager has, and then the owner has different wishes than the tenant has. And so it's hard to be aligned, but try to get aligned as much as possible. And then the other thing is to pick a property manager who already manages properties in that area. Where I've failed several times in property management is hiring someone that lives far from the property, and it just doesn't work out very well. And because the property, you want the property manager on site as much as possible. And that's happened to us a couple different times. And then another thing in property management, if you're going to be the property manager, only take on assignments where you can be successful in the assignment, because that will allow you to keep a good reputation in the industry. And I've been guilty of taking on assignments that are too tough, and probably should have declined those assignments, or come up with a better business plan. And so that's something I'm working on in my career as a property manager.
Is it just not being able to execute on what we think is achievable for that area, location, demographic, or is it just a heavy lift?
Yeah, I mean, so you can't change an area quickly or at all. And so I've definitely been guilty of taking on assignments that are in bad areas. And then, well, if you're taking on a property management assignment in a bad area, you can't rent it to good people that you want with good credit scores. And so, the business plan just doesn't work out as well as you'd think. So we could talk about that for hours.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So how do you build a successful team? You've got a big operation. How do you put all the pieces together with teammates?
Yeah, so it's my team right now is 60 people, 65 people. We've got folks that have worked for us for 17 years and 15 years and lots over 10, lots over 5. Property management is a high turnover industry, especially in maintenance and laborers. The key is putting together an attractive offering to these folks in the beginning, and then working really closely with them over time to make sure that they're being successful, they're feeling successful. And it's really challenging for sure, but I just work pretty closely with my staff. Even the laborers. Like, for instance, one of the laborers that's worked for us for a long time, he had a medical episode, and I called his girlfriend, I called him, and then we delivered a package of food to his house. Just trying to go the extra mile so that these people, when you ask them to clean up sewage at 11 p.m., on New Year's Eve, that they'll answer the call. Because that's what property management requires, Yeah.
Especially with today's labor force and the challenges to meet the amount of people that are needed to get the job done, and the quality of people. Totally agree. That's great. Stewart, we truly appreciate you spending time with us today. Your track record, your path to success, it's incredible for listeners to hear about it. If they want to get in touch with you or your company and learn more about your operation, how can they do so?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook, send me a Facebook message. You can find me on LinkedIn, send me a LinkedIn message. And then my email address is sbeal, SBEAL, at gobeal, GOBEAL.com. And then for potential investors, check out bealcapital.com.
Awesome. And I'll also have the contact information in the post when we get this video formally sent out. So truly appreciate your time, and look forward to speaking with you in the future.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Bye.